Hey. Hey, Jessica, Ida. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes, or, a minute or so before other people join. This is going to be a really interesting topic because it is for the personal side of life and also for business. I think for business owners, it's essential that they understand what I'm going to be talking about, but it also applies to every single part of your life, which is what's cool because it can help you in everything that you need to do. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of things, business, and then also your interpersonal relationships and ways to apply this information to yourself as well in your personal life, which is kind of cool. Hey, Patty. So I'm just waiting for a couple more people that said they were going to come, but I guess we're going to start in just a few seconds. If they can't make it on for whatever reason, they'll watch the replay. So let's just start because I have a lot to say. And I normally actually do this kind of thing on a webinar or through workshops because there's just so much information that needs to come out. I want this to be, instead of slides and a PowerPoint and all of that, I wanted it to be more interactive. So if you guys have questions, just type them in and I'll answer them. Because it is a lot of information and not everyone is aware of all of these things that I'm going to be talking about. So I want to be able to address any concerns or anything that you have. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about ways to set a foundation for your business, for your life, all kinds of things that you can put together, hey Jessica, that you can have to really maintain a foundational structure for everything that you do, right? Because we always have to have a plan. When we look to do something in our personal life, in our business life, we look to do it in a way that's going to be sustainable. We want to make sure that we're not only going to succeed in doing it, but we're also going to be able to maintain the momentum, to be able to think ahead and plan for the future and have those things in place should something, God forbid, go wrong, right? So we plan and sometimes things don't go according to plan. So we want to make sure that there always is a backup and a way to secure ourselves, sort of like a safety net. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So like anything else, this all starts with your state of mind. Whether in your personal life or in your business life, with your company, with your employees, you need to have a clear mind. You need to declutter. You need to make sure that you're staying on track and focused on what it is that you're doing. Because if you're not focused, you lose track because we all like to multitask. I actually wrote an article about this. Multitasking is not ideal. Multitasking just slows you down. It takes away from the focus of the most important things that you need to do, and it derails you. So what happens is, yes, you can do more things eventually, but they're slower and they may not be as effective as what you originally wanted them to be. When you pay attention to one thing at a time, you make sure that you tackle that thing, you do it well, you execute it, then you move on to the next thing. And for the little things, you can always delegate, or you can have an assistant, or you can make sure that you do them at a time where it doesn't affect what you have to do during the day. So for instance, if you're running a business and you have to take care of your clients, they come first. The admin stuff can come later. Things that you can put off until later on, you can do. So answering emails, for instance, or answering the phones is important because you need to have that first-hand contact. But then you can take messages. You can put it through to voicemail. You can say to them, okay, I'm going to look into this and call you back. All these things that you can do after. But that's just a small example of things, of ways that you don't need to multitask, that you can actually plan in advance. There are ways, and I took a course on this to really fine-tune your inbox, your mailbox, so that when you open up, Outlook is not the first thing that you see in the morning so that you're able to focus on the things at hand, the urgent issues, and then go into your inbox later. You can have an automatic message saying I respond within 24 hours. You could do the same thing on your voicemail. So these are just, very simple things. And I wasn't really going to get into this, but I'm going to dive into the other. So when it comes to setting a foundation, it's all about your state of mind. It's about creating your safe space in your head, in your mind, and also your physical space, because you need to make sure that you have whatever it is that you need to be able to support you in what you're doing. So if, for instance, at this moment, I needed to have a quiet space in order to go on live, I needed to make sure, today's a snow day here, so my kids are at home. I needed to make sure that they were occupied and in a different space than me so that I don't get interrupted, so I can give you my full and undivided attention. And so these are things that we plan ahead for, right? These are things that we think about in advance. Your personal presence has to be there all the time. You need to make sure that you're always on point, that you're looking at the person, you have eye contact, you're looking at body language, you're showing them that you are focusing on them, that you are committed to your time with them, you're respectful of their time and their efforts and whatever it is that you're doing with them. And you need to make sure that phones are put away and other distractions are eliminated, because if not, what's going to happen is they're not going to take you as seriously. They're going to think that they're not the first priority on your mind, and it's going to just derail from there. Okay, sorry, I have a little bit of allergies. So we talked about your personal space and your state of mind and your physical space. Now, we're going to talk about commitment. Whenever you want to do something, you need to commit fully. You need to make sure that you know what you're getting into. So having done the research is amazing, because you then are equipped and aware of what's needed in order to get everything done. If you don't know what you're getting yourself into, then you're at risk of stopping and giving up and letting go, and you're going to just go from one thing to another. So when you're starting a business, or if you already have a business, you need to make sure that you know that you have an end game, that you have a plan, and that you know where it's going. And not only that, you need to make sure that whoever is going there with you is aware of the plan. Transparency is key, right? So your expectations, your goals, your vision, your mission, that all has to be done in advance of you starting. If you already have a business and you don't have these things in place, you need a plan of action, but you also need processes and procedures. You need to have these documented. You need to make sure everyone's following the same thing. It all needs to be uniform, because if not, people are not going to have a clear understanding of not only what their role is, but what their function is within the company. So everyone does something that is then left off and taken over by someone else. So for instance, a receptionist answers the phone, she transfers the call. That call is answered by the appropriate person. That person handles it up to a certain point, then it gets passed off. It can go to an admin person, it can go to a salesperson, it can go to an IT person, it can go to a finance person, but all of these things have an order within your business, right? So even if you're running your own business and it's online, you have a funnel. So first you have your landing page, then you have your sales page, then you have your capture page, then you have your payment page, and then you have your welcome email or whatever it is that you do. And then you have to start administering the program or sending the product out, whatever it is that you're selling. All of these steps have something that had to have been done before in advance in order to have them fully executed in a seamless way. If you didn't put those funnels in place, if you didn't put that structure in place in your workplace, then how are people going to know what they need to do? How are people going to understand what their role and function is within the company? How are you going to manage that? How is a manager or a leader supposed to support his staff, his or her staff, if they don't know what it is that you're trying to achieve within the company? So it might sound, basic, and it might sound just common sense and common knowledge, but it really isn't that common. Most businesses fail not because the business owner doesn't know what he or she is selling or providing. It's because they don't know how to properly run their business. They don't know how to properly manage their staff. So what happens is things get lost, right? Things fall through the cracks. People end up leaving. The retention is very low. And people lose sight of the bottom line. People lose sight of what it is that they're supposed to be doing. They don't have faith in the company. You need to invest not only in your people, but in your company itself, in the foundation of your company. And that's what we're going to be talking about now. You need to understand that as a business person, whatever it is that you're selling or providing, you might be fantastic at knowing what that is, and you might be an expert at what that is. But if you don't know how to run your business, if you don't know how to run your people, then you're going to fail. It's just inevitable. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to be mean or rude. It is the truth. And most businesses fail because of that, not because of any other area. It's because they don't have the proper foundation and structure. They don't have the people at the top doing the right job in making sure that everyone below them knows what their expectation is, knows why they're doing what they're doing, and knows what the bottom line is for the company. Because it is their livelihood. So imagine going into a job where you're insecure because you know that the numbers are dropping, you know that the company is not performing where it should be, and you're afraid that one day you're going to come in and you're going to get the pink slip. You're afraid that one day you're going to come in and they're going to have layoffs. You're afraid that the doors will shut. You're afraid that the company will fold. And so you start to look for another job. Now, what happens between then and the time that you leave is that your productivity lessens, right? Decreases. You have no momentum. You have no passion or desire, and you start to slack off. And that is a spiral effect. That type of mentality is contagious. So other people see the same thing. Then people start to talk, right? Then you have all of these things going on within the company, politics, people afraid, so they're acting out in different ways. We're going to talk about that soon because we're also talking about emotional intelligence today, which is, by the way, huge. You have to really understand that what you do in your business doesn't just affect you. It affects your clients. It affects your employees. It affects your family and your friends and everyone around you. You come home at the end of the day, and if you're stressed and if you can't sleep and if you don't know what you're going to do next, it shows. You take it out on other people without even realizing what you're doing. So it's so important to have that foundation and that structure in place. You need to be coachable. You need to work with people who are going to show you the right things to do, because you might be fantastic, like I said, at what you're selling or providing, but you need somebody to help you in terms of putting your business in order, in terms of making sure that you are set up for success with your company, and to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you have the confidence to be able to run your company, to be able to grow it and scale it. And what happens if you don't have these things in place? What happens if something happens to you? Where does that leave your employees? Where does that leave your family? Where does that leave your business? So all of these things will be looked at in a second. You need to have empathy for the people around you. You need to have accountability to those people and to yourself. You need to have understanding and leadership skills, because a business owner without the proper leadership skills, again, is going to fail. If you don't have that knowledge about what's happening within your workforce, what's happening in your culture, what's happening in your business, you're just looking at the spreadsheets and you're noticing that the numbers are declining. You're noticing that things aren't going as well as they should be. The sales are dropping. Productivity is not at its maximum. So you're not asking the right questions. You might be talking to your managers. You might be talking to your leaders. And sorry, I just had somebody that asked me if there's no webinar, and I thought I had invited. So let me just go back in and see. I can't even go on here. I'm going to say sorry about that. I am live. So sorry about that. I hope it didn't interrupt. So basically what happens is when you don't have knowledge of what's going on, when you're just listening to maybe a manager that says he's frustrated because Jane Doe is not doing her job properly. If you have someone who is complaining about not being able to do their job because they don't have the proper tools, they don't have the proper training. They haven't been set up for success. They have not been set up to do the job that they need to do. And that is a failure on leadership side, right? Not every manager is a leader. Not every manager knows what they're doing, and you have to invest in those managers. You have to make sure that if they are promoted to a management level, that they have those leadership skills. And you as a business owner need to have those leadership skills. You need to make sure that you invest in that. We'll talk a little bit about that later. You need to invest in your own development and your development of your company. You need to always be flexible to make sure that when things are not going the proper way, that you are going to make some changes. You are going to, implement certain different strategies that are going to get you to the point where you need to be. And you need to, at the end of the day, make an impact. I think that's why all of us are in business. We either want to make an impact for ourselves and our families, or we want to make an impact for the people that we're leaving behind and the rest of the world, right? We want to be able to be successful so that we can leave something for our kids, so that we can give back to the community, so that we can help make the world a better place at the end of the day. We want to thrive as a business so we can employ more people and give them jobs and make sure that they are also climbing the ladder and succeeding with us. That's the best part. And we want to have purpose. We're doing everything with a purpose. So if you don't love what you do, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, why are you in that business? Right? If you don't wake up every morning and are so excited about wanting to go into work, about wanting to greet your employees, about wanting to make a difference in the world, and wanting to help your clients and your customers, and just show that, with the right determination and focus and vision, anybody can do this, then why are you doing it if you're not passionate about it? You need to find something else to do. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now, you need to also have transparency, because you need to have honesty with yourself, and then you need to have honesty with those people that are involved in your business, because they have a stake in it. They might not own the business, they might not have shares in the business, but like I said before, they are loyal to you, they're devoted to you, they wake up every day and they come to work, they want to do the best for you. So you need to be honest about where it is that you're heading, where they're going to fit into that bigger picture, right? So it's really important to have that transparency all along. So when I talk about setting the right foundation, let's talk about business basics, okay? We're going to talk about just the actual business structure. So when you're in business, and whether you're just looking to start a business or you already have one, you need to consider a few things that will determine the sustainability of your business, right? So you can't just build a house of cards. You can't build a house starting from the roof down. You have to do the basement first, put all the pillars there, then you have to start building on top, right? So what we talk about with the foundation is that first of all, you need to have done your market research. So are other people already in this industry? what's working for them and what's not. You can learn from other people's mistakes and failures. So you need to make sure that you have done all of your legal homework, that you work with people who are going to help you succeed, which means that you have the proper legal documents in place, that you have either incorporated or somehow registered your company, that you are insured for liability purposes, that you are following code, that you are up to government standards. If you're a professional, you need to make sure that you're in good standing for all of your designations and licenses. You need to make sure that you have everything that you need from a legal standpoint to back you up. You need to make sure that if anyone ever comes in to audit you, you have the right financial structure. So it's important to have the proper accountant and the proper advisors, and bookkeeping has to be in order. You need to make sure that you have all of the documents, templates, spreadsheets in place. It's not good enough to have them on your computer. What if it crashes? What if something happens? So it's also really important to have a backup of those documents. You need to make sure that you are protected at all times. You need to make sure that you know where you stand financially, where you stand legally, where you stand with your clients in terms of liability, and also with your employees. If you have a labor board, you need to make sure that you know what is expected of you as an employer. And it's also really important to understand that when you have employees, it's not just about making sure that they get paid. It's about making sure that they have a safe space to work in, that you're meeting fire codes, that, here in Ontario, we have the Employment Standards Act that we follow, and it's very extensive in what an employer needs to do to make sure that they are in compliance with that. So all of these things usually are taken care of by an HR department, but if you don't have the proper HR department, you may not be aware of that. So you're leaving yourself at risk for a lawsuit. You're leaving yourself at risk for something that somebody can use against you. If someone wants to go to the labor board, if you don't have the proper infrastructure in place, all of these things leave you at risk. So by having the proper foundation, you're making sure that company that you're building is not a house of cards, that it's not going to come crashing down, that even if one little brick comes apart, the rest of the structure is going to hold it in place. You can replace the brick, you can fix it, you can upgrade, you can make renovations to your home, but this is your livelihood. So you want to make sure that you have the proper foundation. That ties in with the proper foundation in your personal life, because you need to make sure that you have the proper people in place to support you. You need to make sure that you have the proper finances in place to back you. You need to make sure that you are not taking from your family and risking it for something. It's not good to borrow against your mortgage ever. It's not good to put your personal name on the line ever. And it's not good to let yourself be exposed to potential damage if something happens with your company. The other thing is, when you have a company and you want to make sure that, and I don't know if you have any questions, please type them in and ask me. I want to make sure that you understand all of this. But when you have a company, you are looking at the long term, right? So we also look at your strategy for down the road. Are you a serial entrepreneur where you're going to have this company, eventually you're going to want to sell it, and you're going to want to come out of it and start something new? Or you might want to still be hands-on in terms of just overseeing, but not on a day-to-day level, and you're going to want to start moving forward. Or you want to have an exit strategy where you want to sell it altogether and just move on to the next thing. Maybe you want to keep it for life. Maybe you want it as a legacy, as a family business, but you need to plan for that in advance. So by working with the right professionals, you are going to be able to put that into place and into practice. Now, what happens if, for instance, something happens to you? What happens to your business then? Does it fold? Is someone there to pick up where you left off and is able to keep it going? Did you make sure that you have a power of attorney or a will or some sort of contingency plan? Is there somebody that's going to be able to support your family while you are going through this? It's really, really important that you understand what happens if something, God forbid, happens to you. So just like anything else, you have life insurance, you make sure that you have a will, you know what your family is going to do in case something happens to you. The same thing has to happen for your business. Now, what happens if you put all your trust into one person? Or even if you have, you know, an office with 10 people and you've got, say, an office manager, or you have an executive assistant, and that person, something happens to them one day. Are you able to replace them and know where they left off and where somebody else needs to pick up? Are you able to do that job yourself? Do you understand what your employees are doing that you would be having to do until they are replaced? Or are you leaving yourself at a loss? Because imagine if you come into the office one day and you're the only one there. And you don't know what those people were doing. They didn't keep proper records. They didn't keep proper notes. They don't have anything saved on their computer, or maybe they use their personal computer. You have to think about that. Also, you need to make sure that from a liability perspective, you have certain things in place when other people are using your technology. So you don't want to come in one day and find out that one of your workers has been using the internet to do unlawful things. So you need to make sure that those things are in place too. And that again goes into all of the training and all of the liability pieces and all of the other processes and procedures that you need to have when you're onboarding, and for your employees to know what the expectation is of them with the company. What's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, and what's not. So that's, you know, in terms of setting the right foundation. In your life, you need to also have the right foundation, like I said, when it comes to taking care of your family, when it comes to taking care of other things that are going to come up, such as an illness or, you know, a divorce, for instance, or you need to relocate. All of these things, you need to have something set up in the background to make sure that in case something like this happens, you are protected. So you need to lay down a foundation for that as well. And everything needs to be documented, because if you're not able to say, yes, I said this or I did this, then you're leaving your family now at a risk and at a loss, and they're going to have to fight and, you know, go through all the legal trauma that leaves behind. So make sure that you protect yourself from all angles, whether it's personal or whether it's business. Now, I wanted, to get into the emotional intelligence piece. Okay, this emotional intelligence is really an important and such an integral part of your life. It is something that we need to understand because it really rules who we are and how we relate to other people and how we exist in this world. So with emotional intelligence, it is different than IQ. So the difference is that IQ, you were born with. IQ is your ability to learn, to take in information. Your EQ, which is, or EI, however you want to relate to it, your emotional intelligence, you're not necessarily born with it. It's something that can be learned. So when you are learning about emotional intelligence, you have to take in all of the information and you have to sort of train your brain. You have to make sure that you understand what it is that we're talking about. So I'm going to give you some information about emotional intelligence with some statistics so that you have that background and you can relate to the next things that I'm going to be saying about it. So emotional intelligence has 4 different components, okay? And we talk about the emotional side of it and then the intelligence side of it. So the way that our brain works, some people talk about it, they relate to it in like your left and the right brain and what those are used for. So one part of your brain is used for emotions, controls the emotions part, and the other part controls the more analytical logical part, right? So That's how some people refer to it. How I'm going to explain this to you now is a little bit different than that, because I want to make sure that maybe you have more of a visual about, how it is that it works. So our body gets electrical signals, senses. And when something happens, when we have a reaction to something, whether we see a person, whether, it goes against all of the senses that we have. So sight, smell, hearing, everything that we have. And when we have those signals entering our brain, they enter through the spinal cord, so through the back of your brain. And then they have to travel through. So the signals travel through the first part of your brain, and the first part of your brain has the emotional side, right? So it goes through your emotional side, which is the limbic system, and then it reaches the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is your logical side. So that controls your analytical ability and all of that. And it has to travel from one to the next. So what happens is we first react, and we react with emotions. And you can't control your initial reaction to something usually, but you can control every other reaction. So the trick is that we need to train ourselves to be able to deal with our reactions and emotions. And the only way to do that is to learn about it and to practice it. And anything can be learned. Research shows that we can change habits. We can actually rewire our brain a certain way when it comes to emotional intelligence, and even to do certain things or to be able to react to certain things, the way we think about certain things. If we do them often enough, then we can rewire them. There's a whole long scientific explanation that I'm not going to get into now, but that is something that can be learned. So before reaching the frontal lobe, it goes through your limbic system. The front of your brain is the analytical part, and so the emotional intelligence is really the balance between the two, the way that your two brains connect to each other and interact with each other. That is the definition or the physical source of emotional intelligence. And so it's really important to understand that, because it gives us some perspective about why we might be reacting to something, and why we're not able to just automatically say, okay, well, that wasn't a rational reaction. But it couldn't have been a rational reaction because it went through your emotional side first. So we always react first with emotion and then with rationality. But we are able to have certain things, certain strategies in place so that we are then able to better handle certain situations, and we're able to better handle certain reactions that we have. So I'm going to give you some statistics now that relate not only to your personal life but also to business, because emotional intelligence in business is huge. It's really, really important. So we know that a higher IQ does not necessarily mean a higher performance. In fact, only 20% of the time does a person with a higher IQ than a higher emotional intelligence score outperform the other. That means that even if they're super smart, super intelligent, super educated, if they have a lower emotional intelligence score, they are not going to perform as well. Only 20% of the times will they perform better than someone with a higher emotional intelligence level. And we do know, on the other hand, that a higher emotional intelligence score will outperform someone with a higher IQ 70% of the time. 70%, how huge is that? Because it all relates to the way that we are able to manage ourselves, manage our feelings, manage our emotions, our reactions, and our relationships. So it's so huge, and this can be learned. That's the beauty of it. Emotional intelligence can be learned. It can be taught. It can be honed. It can be improved. That's the beauty. So we're going to talk a little bit about, the different kinds of feelings and emotions that we have. So we have feelings like joy, sadness, anger, fear, shame, and they have intensities. And you can go from, for joy, for instance, high, medium, and low. So for joy, it could be high would be, super excitement, and medium could be just a glow, and a low can be, I'm content, that's it. I'm just content. For sadness, it can be a really strong intensity, like depression. Medium, you could be more somber. And then for low, you could be very moody, right? For anger, the intensity can be really high when you're furious. It can be medium when you're just disgusted with something. And then if it's low, you could just be annoyed. For fear, you can have terror as intensity. You can have a medium feeling of uneasiness, or it could be low for, you're just cautious, a little anxious about something, but you're more cautious. And then for shame, and this is a big one, for intensity, you could feel worthless. For medium, you can be embarrassed, and for low, it could be regretful, right? So you can apply all of these in different areas, but you need to be able to manage those emotions. If you bring them especially into the workplace or within your personal life, around your children, your parents, your siblings, your spouse, these can make or break you, whether it's in your personal life or in your professional life. It's really important that you know yourself and you are aware of these, and that's the first part of emotional intelligence. You have to know your triggers. You have to know the person as a whole, whether it's you or someone else. So the whole person in this context would be a combination of IQ, EQ or EI, emotional intelligence, and their personality. So you can have a really easygoing person, you can have someone who's not so easygoing, and you can have someone who's always angry, on edge, anxious, and not very easy to get along with. And those are just sometimes their personality traits, but many times it's a lack of emotional intelligence. And so you need to understand that parts of these can be improved, parts of these can be honed so that you're able to then manage yourself better and manage other people better and manage all of those interpersonal relationships. And those interpersonal relationships will lead to other areas of your life and can improve them in so many ways. So we know in the workforce that 58% of performance is accounted to emotional intelligence, which means that when people are happy, when they're emotionally able to relate to others, when they can express themselves, when they know what it is that they're feeling and why they're feeling it, and they can balance what's going on in their life, then they are able to produce better. So 58%, more than half of the productivity and performance, is accounted to emotional intelligence in the workplace. And emotional intelligence is the foundation of critical skills, right? It's really the foundation of things like time management, decision making, accountability, and I can go on and on and on. There is a tree for this. There are things that we can get into, and again, this is not just about emotional intelligence, so I don't want to hijack this live for that. But people study this. People go to workshops, people take courses, people invest in themselves, companies invest in their employees when it comes to this to make sure that they increase the level of emotional intelligence within their workforce and in their staff so that they can have better productivity, because then all those other areas are also able to be improved. 90% of top performers, have a high emotional intelligence score. 90%. So it doesn't mean that just because you score high in emotional intelligence, you're going to be, the superstar, but 90% of people are. And these numbers don't lie. These are statistics. And 85 to 87% of success is from soft skills, which means that all of these things that we just talked about, such as time management, decision-making, accountability, empathy, all of that is attributed to EQ. So 85 to 87%. That's really high. And that's why 90% of people with a high EQ are successful. Okay, so those are just some statistics. Now, you have an obligation to yourself to be the best version of yourself, to be the best person that you can be, to be as successful as you can be by equipping yourself, by investing in yourself, by giving yourself every single opportunity to have the success that you want. Because when it comes down to it, we are all given the same information if we want it, if we want to find it, if we want to accept it. You can go online and you can Google everything I just told you. Most people don't. You can go online and research it. Most people don't. Most people don't even care because they don't understand the correlation between this and their success. They don't understand that this will help them so much in their future and in their successful future. And if they only put a little bit of time and effort into improving themselves, that they can improve all the areas in their life, including their career. So when it comes to, information that's available to us, we're all given the same information. What we do with it is what determines if one person will succeed while another doesn't. Everybody can have the same opportunities. Everyone can have the same luxuries. Everyone can have the same, hand out and hand up. But if they don't take them for it, if they don't take them up on their offer, if they don't accept and invite that into their life, it's not going to happen. It doesn't magically appear. Success, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and even then it's not guaranteed, is not going to dictate, it's not going to guarantee that you are going to be successful. Success is earned, right? So whether you come from a wealthy family who's able to give you a business that's handed down to you, or whether you have to build it on your own, what you make of it is what you make of it. If you are handed a business and you don't know what to do with it and you don't know how to run it, you don't know how to manage it, you have no clue what it's all about, chances are it's going to fail. Unless you have the right advisors who are able to guide you and do the work for you. But if you're not going to invest in the business, if you're not going to give of yourself, then you're not going to succeed in it, period. And so it's really important to to have accountability and to take responsibility for what you're doing with your life. So when it comes to emotional intelligence, there are 4 components to that. And it comes down to personal competence and then social competence. And when it comes to personal competence, we look at, what we see, and which is the self-awareness, and what we do, which is the self-management. And for social competence, we look at what we see, which is the social awareness, and then again, what we do, which is the relationship management. And all of those things tie in together because we need to be aware of ourselves, and we need to be aware and have accountability for how we manage ourselves. And then we also need to be aware of other people and the social awareness of not just other people, but other situations and things that are going on in the world, and how, the different cultures and why people do what they do and say what they say and act how they act and respond how they respond. And then how we manage those relationships, because we all have choices. It all comes down to a choice. We can either learn about who we are, and what we can offer the world, or we cannot. And we can learn about other people and what makes them tick and how we can get along with them, or we cannot. And that is a personal choice. We all have to take accountability for our personal choices, right? So if you want to improve areas of your life, you need to improve your emotional intelligence. Some people are naturally inclined to have a higher emotional intelligence, and some people need a little bit of work on it. But it is something that's attainable. It is something that can be learned and can be improved and should be learned and improved. Because if somebody tells you that you can be the best version of yourself, why wouldn't you want to take them up on it? Why wouldn't you want to do everything in your power, especially when it doesn't cost you anything, to be able to just make small changes that lead to bigger changes that lead to big, big returns? And, you will be rewarded for it. You'll see that every part of your life is going to be so much better when you increase your emotional intelligence. So the first part is about understanding your emotions and your awareness of them. So a really good way to do this is to keep an inventory or keep track of what emotions you have to certain and reactions to certain situations, certain people, what triggers you have, and then write them down. Make sure that you chronicle this, because the only way that you're going to see improvement is by actually documenting it and working on it, and then making the changes, implementing those changes, and seeing the results afterwards. So it's really important. The second part is your ability to adapt, your ability to be flexible and maintain positive composure. So no matter what's happening with you, instead of just, flying off the handle, instead of breaking down, instead of taking your anger out on someone else and retaliating, sit back and think. Give yourself some time. They say think, 10 seconds before you respond or you react to something. Read an email over and over again before you send it. These are all ways to control your emotional intelligence. Excuse me. So these are ways that you can improve the way that you look at yourself, and improve that you look at the way that you look at other people, and how you relate to yourself and to others. And then you have to, the third point is sizing up others and maintaining awareness about the cues that you're getting from them. So emotional intelligence also has to do a lot with reading body language and being able to understand other people. They may not be saying something, but they could be thinking it. And if you're really good, you can pick up on those cues and clues. You can look at someone's facial expression. You can look at whether or not they're crossing their arms. You can look at whether or not they're open to you, if they're leaning towards you while you're talking, if they're nodding while you're talking, if they're kind of rolling their eyes and looking the other way, if they're turning their head, if they're using gestures, if their arms are open, if their arms are, by their sides the whole time and they're tense, or if they're more animated. These are ways to pick up on people's cues and clues, right? These are ways to be able to read another person. If you are in the best mood ever, you just got a raise, you come home and you're so happy and you open the door, but your spouse is sitting there and she's crying on the couch, or your husband is yelling at the children, then you need to look at the vibe in the room. You need to be able to pick up on what's going on. You need to say, okay, I'm here, but these people clearly are not, so I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until everyone is sort of on the same page in terms of, the energy in the room before I give them the good news. Same thing with your anger. You might have had an awful day at work. You might have gotten into a car accident. You might have had a fight with somebody. You might have gotten angry at a cashier when you went shopping. You come home and you want to vent, but you open the door and there is your wife on the couch reading a book to the kids, or your husband's in the kitchen making you a romantic dinner, and here you are, you just want to go off on them, you just want to vent, and it's not good. You have to, again, look at the energy in the room, look at what's going on, feel the vibes, and see if it's a good time or not to get what you need to say off your chest. So it's really important to understand, even if it's a phone call, even if you're talking to somebody, you're having a meeting over the phone, there are certain things that you need to relate to someone else. Timing is also very important. If a colleague is talking to you, in the kitchen by the water cooler, and she's telling you about how she got into a fight with her husband, or she found out he was cheating on her and she's very upset, or her child, didn't turn in an assignment or got suspended from school, and all you're thinking about in your head is, oh, I really need this project done. When can she get on this? And you're like, and then as soon as she finishes talking, you say, oh, by the way, did you happen to, submit your paper, or did you get a chance to work on this? And the person just looks at you like, oh my God, I just confided in you. I just told you a personal thing that was bothering me, and you don't even relate to that. All you care about is my work. So that is not going to help you. That is not managing your relationship with someone else. That is not having your social awareness at a high level, right? These are just a couple of little examples, and of course anything, can be changed to suit your particular situation, but these are ways of relating to other people. So you need to make sure that you're able to size up the other person or the other people, and also the situation and the vibe that's going on in the room. If you are late for a meeting, or even if you're sitting in a meeting and everyone in the room is tense and there's friction, and one person wants to get their point across and the other person wants to get their point across, and they're at a crossroads and they're just butting heads, it's not really a good time to interject and bring up another topic, right? You need to de-escalate. You need to make sure that that particular situation has resolved itself before you move on to the next thing. Or you go into your boss's office and he's in a heated discussion with somebody else, or he's on the phone and he's upset with a vendor, and he slams the phone and looks at you, especially if you don't have an appointment, and you wanted to go in for a raise. Is it a good time to ask for that raise? Probably not, because chances are you're not going to get it. But you can wait for a better time when he's in a better mood. You can wait for, a proper meeting time, and to schedule it in advance, and maybe, come in with some great story about, an accomplishment that you had, or something that's going on in a way that you contributed to the improvement of the company. And then that will probably get you the raise that you want. That will probably get you the recognition that you need. But you need to size it up. You need to be able to be aware of those social situations and of the other person as well. And the fourth thing is your ability to apply that awareness and understanding to manage those relationships. So you need to be able to always look at how you are with other people, and not just how you are with other people, but how other people are with other people. So whether you're reading books or you're watching movies, these are just little strategies that you can use to size up situations. So you can learn from other people. You can see how other people relate to other people. You can see how you would have acted in a certain situation versus what they're showing you on the screen or what you're reading in the book. You can run ideas by trusted people. You can talk to your friends about certain, urges that you have to act on something, or to confront someone, and see what they say. If the person really cares about you, they'll probably give you the advice of don't overreact. Think a little bit, sleep on it. There is a reason why we say these things, right? Sleep on it. Let your mind rest a little bit. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you say something that you will end up regretting for the rest of your life. Sometimes we do things and we say things that are completely not us, but we couldn't help it because something had triggered us. And it may not even be related to the actual thing that's happening at this moment. It could be something that's brought in from an unresolved issue from your past, from your childhood, from a previous relationship, from a previous experience at work. It may not even be about what's happening right now. So it's so important to understand where your triggers are and what they are and how you can improve them, right? It's important to see yourself outside of that situation and say, okay, if I wasn't really feeling this way, would I respond the same way? Would I have reacted the same way? And when we stop and think and give ourselves time to calm down, we are not going to make those mistakes. We're not going to react harshly. We're not going to say things that we don't mean. We're not going to do things that we regret. Even those emails that we want to send, you can leave it in your box. Write it up, but don't send it. What I like to do is I like to write the body of the email, but not put the email address. That way, even if I want to press send, I can't until I put the person's email address in there. If I'm responding to someone, I will erase that email address so that even by accident, I wouldn't send it. Just because I want to make sure that what I'm sending comes across the way I intend it to. Because everything gets lost in translation when it's over text or email. We can't convey our feelings, our emotions properly when it's with just the written word. Because again, you don't have anything else to gauge it with. You don't have the body language, you don't have the facial expressions, you don't have the tone of voice. Even though, if you're not doing a Zoom call, if you're not doing a video conference, with a phone call, you can gauge the person's tone of voice. So you can see if they're excited, if they're not, if they're hemming and hawing, if they're breathing, if they're sighing. You can kind of tell. It's not 100%, but you can at least have those indicators. But when you're sending an email or a text, it's completely gone. The only thing they're reading is what you put on there. So how they read it and how they perceive it versus how you meant for it to come across could be two totally different things. And that can make or break a relationship, that can make or break a business deal, that can make or break your entire business or your marriage or anything else. You really need to think about that, and you need to put it into context and really understand the ramifications of acting out before we think, and not being emotionally available to ourselves with the awareness and our ability to manage ourselves. And, the self-awareness versus the regulation, you need to be able to be aware of yourself before you can regulate yourself. It's not going to happen automatically. The regulation only comes with knowledge, with awareness, with practice. And the internal motivation is your drive to meet goals, to do certain things, to succeed, to have better relationships. It's really, really important to do that. Your empathy and your social skills, these are used to build your relationships and to manage them. You need to be able to relate to other people. And if you haven't been in their situation, then try not to judge. There are people who come from different cultures. There are people who come from different backgrounds, and how they deal with certain situations, how they act in certain situations are different. You have people who are, say, from the Middle East or Europe, who are very passionate and speak with their hands, and they're very loud, and they like to get their point across by raising their voice. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, doesn't mean that they're mean people, doesn't even mean that they're angry. There are times when you walk in on a conversation and you think the people are fighting, and they're absolutely, just having a discussion. They're just laughing about something, but the tone of their voice is different because that's how they are in their culture. Then you have other people who are very refined and very quiet and reserved, and you have those families that say children should be seen and not heard, and so everyone's kind of in their own little corner. And you walk into a place like that and you think, oh, is this like a funeral? I don't know what's going on here. Why is everyone so quiet? Are they all mad at each other? Are they fighting? No, that's just the way that they choose to relate to each other. So these are so, so important to understand, to know, to value who people are, and to make sure that you give them your attention, and to make sure that you are interested in them, that you show them that you're interested in them, that you want to learn more about them, that you want to have, the background of who they are, especially if you're working closely with them. You need to understand that. And you need to know that when you have people that are working from you, everyone is so dynamic. Everyone has so much to give and so much to contribute. And that's what makes the workplace so wonderful, is that you have all these colorful people who are able to just add and contribute and increase to the value of what's going on in the company, that are able to bring a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit of their own personality and background and culture, and make it an interesting place to work at, make it an interactive place to work at. Even when you have, a big company with different divisions and different departments, sometimes in different buildings, make it so that you're not working in siloed spaces. Make it so that it's not functioning as an independent part of your business, but rather that it's all inclusive, that everyone is valued the same way, that whether they're, a CEO or a president or a manager or an IT or a consultant or a receptionist or a caretaker, that they are valued in the same way. That you can see and you can talk to them and you can try and take away from what they can teach you. When people are doing their job, they are the best teachers for you because they're in the trenches. They're doing what they need to do to make the job the best that it can be. and to make the company as successful and profitable as it can be. So if they have suggestions on how to make it better, if they can see a different way of doing things, you should be listening to them. If they go to their boss and their suggestions are shut down and not taken because that manager is afraid of, you taking notice of such an amazing employee, and they can be promoted and even not just match management level, but surpass it, that manager is not an effective leader. That manager is stifling the other person out of fear. That's a management style, right? That person is not invested in the good of the company, in the better end and goal of the company. That person is invested in themselves. And that is the type of manager that you should watch out for. That is the type of manager that maybe should not be managing somebody who has the potential to be so much more. And there are so many stories about, people like that and situations like that. There is a story about a man who was in an advertising agency, and he was what appeared to other people to be as slacking off and not really doing anything, just sitting in his office and being quiet, not going on meetings, not really taking too many calls. And the other people were like, what is this guy doing? We don't understand. He's been in there for, 2 weeks not doing anything. We're working our butts off. He's not really producing. What's going on? They take it to their manager, and the manager says, how long has this been going on? Oh, a couple of weeks? Okay, just let him be. Leave him alone. Why? Because the last time this happened and the time before, at the end of the 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever that he seemed to have been slacking off, he came up with the most brilliant ideas that made the company millions of dollars. And that is just his method. That's just the way he operates. And that's what he does. He retreats into his little, cocoon in his head, and he formulates all these things. And then at the end of it, we come up with a master plan. He's a superstar. He's a rock star. He's not slacking off. He is doing whatever he needs to do internally to come up with so many different effective strategies and recommendations for the company to grow. So it's not always what you see that's really what's happening. And it's important to understand that everybody works in their own way. The same thing with other people who have worked in very entry-level positions, but the bosses took notice of them, took the time to speak with them, and recognized their potential and what they had to offer. And these people were then taken, and they were cultivated, and they were invested in, and they ended up having executive positions at the end and in leadership roles that far surpassed anyone's expectation or imagination. So that goes again with the emotional intelligence and being able to recognize other people, to be able to empower them, right? It's not enough that you recognize it, you have to make them recognize it too. You have to make sure that those people are going to believe in themselves as much as you believe in them. And that's really a huge part of that. So, we talked about all these things. This particular live was supposed to be about setting the foundation as a business owner, and also within your personal life, and also it was about, the emotional intelligence piece of it. And I can't stress to you how important emotional intelligence is, and how much it needs to be reinforced, and how much companies need to invest in their employees. And, we do have budgets for these things. We do have ongoing development courses and workshops and seminars that companies are pouring money into because they see the value. They see that, it's not just a number, it's a person. It's not just an employee, it's an integral part of the business. It's not just somebody sitting behind a desk, it's a mind. It's a human mind that is there and that mind is taking all the time to not only do their job and perform it to the best of their ability, but also to think 10 steps ahead to say, how can I do it better? What recommendations can I make so that I'm not only helping out, but I'm recognized and I'm valued, and maybe I can move forward and grow with the company. And that will help your retention. That will help your growth. That will help your reputation. Because when you're posting a job and other people are looking to apply for it, they can research the company. And if you have a bad reputation out there, they're not going to want to work for you. They're just not. I know many employers treat their employees as, a commodity that can be traded at any time and something that can be replaced at any time. But it's not true. It should never be like that. When you hire somebody, it's because you believe in them. It's because they've shown you that they are the best person for that job, that they can do things for you that you couldn't do on your own, right? We hire people who can do the work better than us, who have more expertise and more knowledge. And that's how we should treat them. We should treat them like a valuable person. We should treat them like somebody who is part of our work family. You spend more time at work with these people than you do with your own family. So why not show them that you care? Why not show them that you're willing to do whatever it takes, right? So if you have somebody who's underperforming, then before you reprimand them, before you give them a bad evaluation, think about if there's something going on in their personal life that's affecting them. Think about whether they're being bullied by a colleague. Think about whether their boss is being too hard on them, and what you can do to help them. Because if they've shown you so much goodness up until that point, and that they are producing and they're successful at what they're doing, and you've been happy with them so far, why the sudden change, right? Things don't just happen. It could be that they're bored. It could be that they're no longer finding that satisfaction. So then maybe it's time to promote them. Maybe it's time to show them that you have, reached the maximum capacity at this level. Let's see what you can do at the next level. And if they have, even when you have somebody who's just applying for a job and they have 90% of what you're looking for, and they're fantastic and amazing, and they have those recommendations, and they come, highly recommended by their former employees and also by people who worked with them, invest in the other 10%. Invest in them, because people, employers will hire somebody with a higher emotional intelligence level than they will a higher IQ. They would rather have someone who's going to fit into the culture and be able to work well with other people and within a team than someone who has a high IQ and is not able to get along with anyone else. Right? It's really, really important to understand that. It's important to understand that it's not only the person you're hiring, but it's the personality. It's not only their intelligence that you're hiring, but it's their ability to know themselves, to know others, and to relate and manage their interpersonal relationships and their business relationships. If you have someone who can't speak to the clients well, right, then they wouldn't be able to do a good job in customer service. If you have someone who's not able to speak to a vendor effectively, they wouldn't be able to negotiate. If you have someone who cannot be empathetic towards someone else and assertive at the same time, they wouldn't be a good person to be in a position of collections for financial collections. So you have to think about all of these things. And when you have an HR department, remember that it is human resources. I know most people have forgotten that, okay? Most companies operate their HR departments in such a way that the employers either feel that HR is there to protect the management, or the management feels that the HR is there to protect the employees. But there has to be a middle ground. HR's job is to be the mediator between the employee and the employer. That's their job. They need to make sure that everyone has what they need in order to do their job properly. They need to make sure that all of the legalities are met. They need to make sure that it is a safe place. Not just a safe safe space physically, but emotionally, that it's stable, that the culture is stable, that people are not going to be reprimanded, that people are not going to be afraid to voice their concerns, that people have a safe space to confide with HR about, that people are there to thrive, to succeed. They want, at the end of the day, everyone wants to do a good job and they want to be compensated for it. But not only compensated for it, they want to be valued and acknowledged. They want to make sure that they're making a difference. They're making a difference in their own life, for professionally in their career. They want to make sure that they're making a difference to their family, that they're a role model, that they can come home and be proud of what they're doing. And they want to make sure that they're making a difference to the company, to say, look what I've been able to contribute. I'm such an asset to this company and I love it. And it's a place where I can grow, and it's a place that's going to want to retain me because they see the value in me. So it's so important. Emotional intelligence is so important for everyone. It's important for the employee, it's important for the HR, it's important for the employer, but as a business owner, it's super important for you. You need to make sure that you have that emotional intelligence in place so that you can better manage your people, you can better manage yourself, that you're able to then set your foundation for your business and for your life, and you're able to have that work-life balance. You're able to enjoy what you're doing, because you don't want to be working 24/7. You want your business to work for you. You don't want to work for your business. So you can do that by setting the right foundation. You can do that by having the right infrastructure in place. You can do that by bringing in the people that are going to help you to do that, and by working with professionals and with people who are going to just elevate you and elevate your business and support you and support your business, and also support your personal lifestyle and support your personal goals. So, it's important that you're able to be coachable and that you listen to advice, because when we're in it, then it's really hard for us to see externally. And somebody said something to me, it really resonated, and I use this all the time. They said, when you're inside the jar, you cannot read the external label, which is so true. Think about it. Like when you're inside and the lid is on and it's dark and you don't see what's going on the outside, you don't see the writing on the wall or on the jar, then how are you going to be able to recognize what's out there? How are you going to be able to fix it if there's a problem? How are you going to be able to see that there are other things that you can do, that there are bigger parts and components to the picture? So it's important that you take your head out of the sand, that you don't ignore the signs, that you have these little warning signs and triggering signs for a reason. And everything that happens in life is for a reason. I do believe that, but we can help ourselves, and you can help yourself, and you have all of the resources available to you. And if you don't, you can find them. And it's important for you to know that you can put all of the things in place to make sure that you secure your future, that you secure your business, that you protect your family, that you protect your loved ones, and that you can do that while protecting your employees and investing in them while you invest in your business, because the more you invest in them, the more they're going to invest in you. So your return is going to be tenfold. And that's it. I mean, I can go on and forever. I don't see any questions here, so I don't know where to end off. Please, if you do have any questions, you can type them in and I'll answer. Alternatively, you can write comments after the fact. Just put them in and we'll respond. I'll respond. My company, BizStance Services, does what's called a 360 analysis. And that is a comprehensive look, sort of like a forensic analysis of either your existing business operations or your business plan if you're looking to get into business. And what we do is we take a look, a 360 look, just like it sounds, from top to bottom, front to back, of everything that you have going on. You're not only from a legal standpoint, but your insurance, your liabilities, your codes, your governmental regulations, and then your internal processes, procedures, your organizational setup. Are the people in the right roles? Are they doing what they need to be doing? Should they be, kind of transferred around? Do you have the proper infrastructure in place for them to be able to invest in them, and for development, for the growth and scaling of your business? Do you also have the right things in place for onboarding? Many companies don't onboard the proper way. And so what happens is when they hire someone, they don't give them everything that they need in order to set them up for success. So these are all the things that we tend to look at. Your templates, your system, your filing systems, the way that you take care of your information, your data management, your CRM, just everything. It's really important that you have that foundational structure. So I think I'm going to end off with that. I do provide, personal coaching and consulting. I do provide business coaching and consulting, and I would be more than happy to speak with you after this live, whenever it is that you want to reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the comments, but my business name is BizStand Services. I do have a Facebook business page. You can look me up on LinkedIn under Vered Lerner, Lerner, and you can also email me at vered@bizstands.com, or you can call me at 437-800-1221. That's 437-800-1221. And I will be more than happy to speak with you and to give you more information about what we talked about today, or any other business topic or concern that you have. So for now, I'm going to bid you farewell. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Have an amazing, amazing day. Success in all that you do. And please, if you take anything away from this live, it's that you really, really need to have a solid foundation to build on so that you can secure whatever it is that you're working on. And you need to really invest yourself in terms of emotional intelligence, because that will enhance every single aspect of your life and increase the enjoyment of every single interaction that you have with other people, so you can have better relationship management. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to the next live, and we'll see you next time.